Open house. Okay. Welcome to the second day of the Open House Lagos Festival 2022. We opened last night with a wonderful keynote speech delivered by our guest speaker, Mr. Bayo Adeola, followed by a discussion between himself and Kelechi of Open Facade Nigeria, anchored by myself. But I think it was found interesting, and I think it set the theme for today. We are going to start now with a panel discussion on, oops, it's gone. Regeneration and reclamation in Lagos. And I'm going to call up the panelists. I'm going to go about it the other way around, and first of all, call up your anchor, who is Mr. Chuka Ihonor, who is also the chairman of the board of trustees of Open House Lagos. So as my oga, I have to call him first. So keep talking as he comes. Chuka studied architecture at the University College Lagos, and first of all worked. Okay, you see, I've localized you. University College London, and first of all worked and began his career at Gordon and Hopwood Lagos. He then set up ARG Studios, where his focus is on modernity and a focus on how design can improve lives. He was appointed the president of Open House Lagos, and this is his 5th year, and we'd like to congratulate him on all his hard work that he has done so far. He's an outspoken Nigerian social and political critic, and is one of the pioneer panel on the TV series The Advocate. Please, a round of applause for him. Our second member of the panel is Mr. Olufemi Babalola, who I would like to invite to come on stage. He's the Vice Chairman, Chief Executive of Gravitas Investments Limited and the developers of Gracefield Island in Lekki. He trained as a lawyer with particular emphasis on commercial law, and has in the past negotiated project finance for high value projects. He has worked internationally in this capacity in the UK, but also in Nigeria. In 2006, he set up Gravitas Investments along with colleagues to develop Gracefield Island as a new eco-friendly neighborhood with sustainable ethos. A round of applause for him. And our third member of the panel is Brenda Unuavworho, and I'm really sorry, I practiced, and please, when you come up, can you please correct me? She studied architecture at Ambrose Ali University in Ekpoma and has practiced for over 18 years, encompassing a range of building types, residential, commercial, banks, and other studies. She's a more than capable project manager. She's currently the general manager at Sterling Realties Development Company, the developers of Maigun Beach Estate. She's a naturally talented writer who has also published books for children as well as adult fiction and a book on architectures. She continues to write in her spare time. She is passionate about women's empowerment and the girl-child advocacy. Please give her a round of applause as well. And I will hand over now to your anchor. Test your mic.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies again for the delay. Lagos problems. I'll just go straight into it. Now, Lagos, as one of the world's most populated and rather large megapolises, continues to witness inward migration driven mainly by commerce. Commerce in all fields, whether one comes in as an artist, a businessman or woman, a finance world professional, whichever. Expansion is thus a very important consideration. How do you continue to accommodate new entrants? Do you build upwards or expand laterally? Do you continue to encroach on adjoining suburbs, annexing whole villages along the way? Lagos has now swallowed up Ikorodu, if not in name, but in spirit and perception. It is fast approaching Ekpe and Badagry. It has already eaten into Ogun State. All this in spite of the creation of new reclaimed land, especially within the Lekki axis, drawn up according to the Lekki Master Plan, produced by Lagos State government, that is. So the result is that now, is a pervasive sprawl at that end of Lagos, which we used to find that sort of development along the Badagry axis back in the 70s and maybe 80s. Badagry tended to be the sprawl, the Badagry Expressway, sorry. And now we have it's going in the direction of Ekpe. Now, there are environmental issues around this expansion. And even though Africa has contributed a minuscule impact to the climate change problems that we all face, we must still work to contain whatever fallouts affect us. So today we have two professionals, and they're now both in they've been introduced already by Aduke Gomez, and one is trained as an architect, the other trained as a lawyer, but they've both found themselves in the real estate, new city, new neighborhood type development. And they will have something to say to us today. So first, ladies first. So Brenda is going first. Mayegun is a mix of reclaimed land reclaimed from water and land reclaimed from land. So it's a mix. And it's by the ocean as against Gracefield Island, which fronts the lagoon. So they're obviously different water bodies. They're very different in character, and the consequences of the weather and climate will be different in each of these developments. So Brenda, please, can you just take about 2 or 3 minutes to take us through Mayegun and what we should know about Mayegun before we engage any further than we have already.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to start by pronouncing my surname. I mean, I get it a lot, so I don't get offended. It's Unuavworho. And I'm sure many people know the name Enahoro. So if you just think about it, that it's Unwa instead of Ena, so it's Unuavworho. There are a lot of silent consonants in the name, so it's not as difficult as it looks. So would Aduke want to try it again? You'll try it again. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So Mayegun Estate is basically a beachside estate. It's the foremost beachside estate in Lagos. And now we know why people have been running away from it. It's a very expensive venture. So what we have is land that was formerly Lekki Beach. So, there was land there, but erosion had taken away much of the land. So if you look through the Google Earth photos, you see that the land, kept on going in more and more, almost like the way we're having at the Bar Beach. So basically, when we got our C of O after buying the land, what the survey points were in the water. So obviously we had to get our land back to be able to make it worth our while. So what did we do? First things first was to raise the level of the entire land. We raised the level of the entire land to about 5 meters above sea level. And then we dredged more sand from the sea to reclaim the area that erosion had taken off. Now, it was a very expensive venture, as you can imagine. And to be able to make sure that that land does not go away, we had to now put in what we call breakwaters. Now, the Lagos State government had done groins along the entire stretch, starting from Eco Atlantic, and it had gone beyond our site. So we were lucky to have that. But even with the presence of the groins, there was still some erosion going on. So we had to engage marine engineers from Netherlands. Of course, they're the best in the world. And it did not come cheap, but we needed only the best because we normally wanted to do an excellent work. So they came up with a solution for us, and which included breakwaters. So basically the breakwaters ran perpendicular to the existing groins to kind of, do I have that picture somewhere? So the groins are what you see up there at the top. The groins are what you see up there. I don't think I remember to send in the picture that had the breakwaters, but we've even built them now. And I can tell you, a very expensive venture, but basically they run perpendicular to the groins to be able to keep in. So what happens is that when the ocean waves come, the breakwaters literally break the power of the waves. And so by the time it's getting to the land, it's very gentle and it's not enough to erode the soil anymore. So that's basically what we've done with Maegun. So it's something that we're very proud of because everybody, and even the infrastructure, they had to be carefully considered. Everything had to be carefully considered. Like, for example, our street lights are all concrete poles. We do not have any metals because, you're thinking about the fact that the seawater will erode it. Even the manhole covers are not metal. We have fiber for that. I mean, everything has been carefully and consciously chosen. So even the architecture, we're giving people designs. So we're doing prototype designs and we're giving them designs that have carefully been spec'd so that they do not have problems. We don't want them to just come and build what they like. And then you tell me, oh, I came here, I built something and it's, it's great. So it's been carefully spec'd by our brilliant architects. And so we're just very excited about the project and we can't wait to see it completed.
Yeah. I'm happy you touched on some of those subjects, especially, like I said, the nature of the water there is different from the nature of the water, say, in Gracefield. So I'm happy you touched on the fact that a lot of beach houses have serious problems to do with corroding stuff, handles of doors, wardrobe handles, all going in no time. So I think we'll move over now and let Olufemi Babalola sort of talk us into Gracefield in the same way.
Hello, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. When I saw the topic, regeneration and reclamation, I was wondering what actually inspired that. Because internationally, reclamation is actually seen as a prime offender against sustainability and things like that. So I found it interesting and it was quite an attractive topic. More so at this time in Lagos, in terms of regeneration. And we'll come back to that in greater detail. Can you use reclamation to regenerate a city? But first, we should be aware that Lagos actually has a policy on regeneration. And they've created a department specifically for that. But when they talk about regeneration, they are talking about regeneration of slum areas. Right. And really, most parts of Lagos, to be kind to them, we say have slums. But really, most parts of Lagos are, okay, you've helped me to complete it. So reclamation then comes in to create these new urban neighborhoods. And I've been very impressed with what Brenda is doing near the Atlantic. And it looks like that's the way Lagos in particular has decided to move forward into the future. a lot of these reclamations that we see in Lagos are not just they are not happening haphazardly. Government has carefully planned it. There is a Lekki master plan, Lekki Regional Master Plan, which starts from the western edge, just after Ikoyi, to the eastern edge in Ekpe. And a lot of these reclamation projects that you see, like Brenda's, like ours on Gracefield Island, are within that master plan. So they contribute, if well executed, to actually to the sustainability of Lagos as a city. One of the topics that we are going to interrogate, and I think I had some of that from what happened yesterday in terms of the history of Lagos, how Lagos came to be. The reality is that the city is evolving. The population is exploding well ahead of infrastructure. So the question is going to be, can we retain the city features we had in the 60s and 70s, where you have a long high street, like you have in Yaba or Surulere? It's very unlikely. It's going to be neighborhoods, gated estates, new cities that will define the new Lagos as we go into the future. And that's what our development, Gracefield Island, is also conceived to be. Not just a neighborhood, but actually to function almost like a city. And it's not just about size. When we say city, you're thinking about, I think it will be like another Lagos, or at the very least, like another Eco-Atlantic. Eco-Atlantic is just going to be over 500 hectares. We are going to be in the region of 100 or so. But the reality is that is the master planning, is the implementation, and is the lifestyle that you intentionally and deliberately create. And an example that I like to give is a place called Monaco. And I say a place called Monaco because Monaco is around 180 hectares with all the reclamation and all that has gone on in Monaco, maybe just hitting about 196 hectares now. That means Monaco is actually smaller than VGC. But Monaco is not just a new urban neighborhood. Monaco is a country with United Nations representation. So we can do it. And just like Brenda too, we are working with the Dutch. The Dutch are the world leaders in reclamation. And that's the way forward for Nigeria. For us to have a lot of this knowledge domestically, we need to learn from the best and bring them on board. I'll stop there for a moment, Chidi.
Thank you. Now, if we go back, like slightly historical now, Lekki, a lot of Lekki was actually considered as wetlands, floodplains. And these floodplains have a function. It's basically for water to drain into, and the city can be dry, maybe after the rain and that sort of thing. And so how has the Lekki Master Plan taken care of that in creating these new environments along that route on land that is very definitely floodplain originally? No doubt you could raise levels, you could do all sorts of things, but let's not forget, if you raise levels, areas behind become under the level. That's the problem you have in a place like Parkview on a small scale. Parkview is much smaller than the entire Lekki stretch. But if you imagine Parkview where the inner areas are raised, the outer areas are raised, and the middle is a valley, and there are problems. How has the Lekki Master Plan perhaps dealt with that? And how have you as developers, because of that, what have you done to ensure that you are not going to flood, and perhaps that you're not going to cause others to flood as well? Is it something that, because you have worked with the Dutch, so you can imagine that you've been through such rigorous.
Okay, it's not just about working with the Dutch, it's about what is happening within Lagos State. First, the Lekki Master Plan is a very well thought out plan. I'm not a spokesman for Lagos State government, by the way, but I know that they had a lot of public consultation when they did this. They commissioned the foremost consulting firm in environment and urban planning to do that, the Andasa Shea and Partners. And this is something they've done well over 20 years ago now. So it's not something new. And specifically, I can only speak for our own project in this instance. We are actually not on wetland. And that's what they've done for the Lekki Master Plan. Most of the new island communities and reclamation projects are not on wetland. You know, in our own case, we're actually 2.3 kilometers from the shoreline of Chevron into the lagoon. So we're actually within the water body itself. And because of the materials we are using to reclaim, it's not imported. That means it has not been harvested from a strange environment. It's from the same environment. So you are not really distorting that environment. And you are not creating any flood issue upland, really. So it hasn't got that negative impact. If anything, you are creating positive impact with your project. Currently, we've planted well over 3,000 trees on Gracefield Island. At the time we started the project, 2015, there was no bird life on Gracefield Island or in the vicinity. There was no butterfly. But now we have those nature activities there. The only thing that we've seen is that you probably have less crabs, you know. And we know that we can always easily create a wetland that can actually support crab life. Other than that, we have actually better marine life now, better nature around our own project site.
Okay, for us, luckily we are at the edge of the Atlantic, so there's nobody behind us. So it was easy to raise up our plots to allow us drain. So the whole Lekki Master Plan drains towards the lagoon. You know, and Lagos State's, you know, as bad as we may think that they are, the ministries work. So in the time we had to do our approval, it was a very rigorous process. You know, we first of all started with the layout approval with the fiscal planning. Then you had to go to Waterfront Ministry for approval to actually build on the waterfront. We had to go to Ministry of Environment. We had to deal with Federal Ministry of Environment for our ESIA. You know, there was just so many levels of each of these things. And because, like I said, we're just interested in doing an excellent job. We're not cutting any corners. We did all the reports. In fact, the other day, my approval consultant was telling me, to be honest, apart from Eco Atlantic, maybe you guys are the only people I've seen with such detailed reports. Like nobody does that. Do you understand?
He has not heard about us.
I don't think so. You know, but maybe because he was talking about the Atlantic side, maybe, you know, so he said, you know, we had such detailed reports and because we wanted to do it right. So by the time we got to the point of drainage clearance approval, they said to us, oh, what is your plan? And they were like, we'll put it in the Atlantic. I said, are you joking? Of course, that was a joke. We knew that we couldn't put it in the Atlantic. So they said they wanted to see exactly how we would drain it. We sent the report, sent the drawings and everything. And they said, okay, granted, this looks good. But do you know that the existing channels where you're going to put your water to are not adequate? So, because we are supposed to drain, right? When we drain our estate, we drain out into the government channels, but they were not adequate. So we had to now sit down and say, they gave us a bill that we should contribute a certain amount of money so that the government will build the drainage in that area. By the time we saw the bill, we were like, So what we did instead, we did one better. We were going to do the road to our estate anyway. So this time, we now decided to do 3 roads. We did the road to, the road out, and the road that is lying parallel of our estate. And of course, we got a smart deal with the government to be able to get some tax relief and all of that. So we went all out and redid the entire drainages of that place. So now, as we drain our estate, we are actually helping the entire community of that Jakonde to be able to properly drain, because we've been able to build new drains and clear it out all the way to make sure that it ends at the lagoon front. So that's what we are doing.
I see. And I mean, we're not going to call names, but to your knowledge, are there any developments that are run by cowboys, basically, and therefore are going against the plan and will not drain properly, will disturb their neighbor's drain. You know what I mean? Anyway, basically somebody who has disobeyed the guidelines. And have they been punished and some of them brought back, to get themselves back on track? Has that happened?
Well, maybe Brenda is bolder than me and she can start naming names. I wouldn't name any name. But really, if you have such, and there are such actually, it's government ultimately that we should hold responsible. They are the regulators. That's why you have government to mediate these things. And they do happen. And one just has to be positive about it, just like what Brenda said. You have such things, you are proactive. In their own case, they are just saying, look, we will work with you, government, to redesign the drainage and to construct it. That is how to develop a city. That's how to develop the continent itself. And just like what we've done in our own capacity as well, we know that the Lekki-Akpa Expressway cannot support mobility in that axis. We worked actively with Lagos State government to actually trigger the construction of the Lekki Regional Road, all of 8.3 kilometers of it. We are contributing in terms of reclamation of parts of that road, and we are supporting them in terms of design. And for us, that's the way forward, instead of pointing fingers and all that. Hopefully, when quality projects like ours come on board, start coming on stream, others will say that, look, there is benefit in doing it right. And we believe that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think that's that's something that I've always, you always have that fear in Nigeria about wanting to cut corners and in a sense disobey the the guidelines. It happens on the smaller scale with architects and our setbacks and stuff like that, So obviously, I just assume that on a larger scale there would be some larger scale disobedience going on, and the consequences of the larger scale disobedience can be a lot worse than the individual buildings, because we see the rains in Lekki and what happens after. And I'm just wondering, so who's to blame for that? I notice it's happening more in government-owned, government-developed areas. Maybe like your Lekki Phase 1. It's not a developer, it's government. So I'm just wondering, does it mean the regulator is themselves not, not keeping up the standard, and it's you guys that now have to lead the way to for a new way of doing things, which, by the way, the government would eventually follow anyway, because you can go first and they'll go after you. So I think it's something that's a bit worrying. Is there any need for things like dikes in Lagos, like you have in the Netherlands, which is basically a country underwater level, underwater level, and the dikes are what helps to contain them. Is there anywhere in the Lekki axis that might end up needing that sort of intervention?
Not really on the lagoon side. You don't have waves on the lagoon, and the current is usually not very strong. So I don't know about the ocean side.
Yeah, well, I think for the ocean side, with the introduction of the groins, and for us that do an extra job with the breakwaters, I think we're fine, because the pockets we have created in our own land with that breakwaters is become so gentle that you can actually swim inside in those pockets and be safe. So it's part of a safety feature for us, that, okay, the residents, even when they go and play at the beach, they cannot get carried away by water. It's something that you can actually use as a marketing point. So right. I don't know that we would need dikes in addition to that. No, okay. I don't think so.
Okay. Now the harsh conditions you have on the ocean side, which you have told us you've done quite a bit to mitigate the impact of those things with your concrete street lights and stuff. Funny enough, was one of the subjects I was going to discuss with you, but I'm happy to see that you've actually already dealt with it. Admittedly, you can't control every building that's going to happen there. People are going to buy things, and that are going to corrode and and all that. But you're dealing with it on your level. But in Gracefield, which is on the lagoon side, it doesn't mean that that problem isn't there, really, because even in a place like Parkview in Ikoyi, there are salt. The problems of corrosion actually are there, maybe not as bad as it would be. So is it something you think might be a small fear and you might want to do something?
Yes, certainly. There are peculiar environmental issues on the lagoon as well. It's a question of intensity. Yeah, the salt content in the moisture around the lagoon is obviously higher than what you'll find in mainland Lagos. And we've taken all that into consideration. One of the things we've done has been to voluntarily subscribe to green building standards. And the ones that we've chosen to adopt is the IFC's EDGE. I think I saw one of the IFC experts in the room, Stephanie. So we are including that as a prerequisite for independent developers on Gracefield Island and for our own buildings as well. And it's interesting, and Brenda just said it, what's the quality sometimes of knowledge you also find in government, in the civil service in Lagos State. The Permanent Secretary Fiscal Planning in Lagos, I think until about 3 weeks ago, I think they've moved that to another ministry now. We actually discussed the EDGE certification with her. She took it on board, and I think that it must be the fastest because within 6 months, she has managed to train a number of civil servants that are now EDGE qualified in Lagos State, so they can test and certify buildings. That's actually a very significant step forward to have on government side. So sometimes, yeah, you have those flashes of good news.
Okay, yeah, it's nice to hear that the EDGE thing is, is playing a part in your development. That's good. Now, the topic on regeneration in the title of this panel was more about regeneration of existing areas of Lagos as a way to improve Lagos and to increase the accommodation in Lagos. So if we look at it from that perspective, what, one would say we're failing at it because we really are not. It looks like reclamation has become almost like a cop-out to cleaning up Lagos. If you get where I'm going, right? They both should be happening side by side. But it looks like maybe the government and even private town planners over the years, over decades actually, have not worked at preserving Lagos and regenerating it. And then they gleefully, like the idea of new environments. And really what we should be doing should be to balance both. What's your attitude to that?
Okay. Thank you. And I must thank Open House for the very forward-looking approach you have to urban planning. The topic that you covered yesterday actually touches on this in terms of the history of Lagos. First, to do what you've said now, to match new developments through reclamation with regeneration of existing communities, you must have a sense of history. If you don't have that sense of history, you won't even know what to preserve and what to do away with. And once you have that, it helps. That's one. Two, it also underlines that when we have this sort of forum, as much as possible, let's get government involved. Let's invite them. Lagos State government has an office of urban renewal and regeneration. They actually have a director general for that. next time we invite them. And ideally, we should even let them know whatever comes out of this engagement. Let them be aware. So to answer your question, it's going side by side, at least on pages of paper of government. Because they will say that Brenda's development is going on, ours is going on, and they are regenerating Ijora Badia. They are regenerating parts of Agege. So on paper, it's happening. So it's just that that connection is not there. Yeah. And it's very important you should say that, because I remember that one of the issues we've raised, and maybe at some point, all new developments will actually have to come together as a body and make that. Government looks at your project and they will just create one heading one day to ask you to come and pay a hefty sum to them. I've told them that's not the way forward, because you are talking about increasing the stock of houses now. What's going to happen on her development, on us? Most of the people that will buy property from us are not likely to be first-time buyers. There are people that are upgrading, So to increase the stock, you have to work with us to say that, look, if we are going to bill you 2 billion, 3 billion, we give you a 50% discount, but we'll actually compel you to develop social housing. There are teachers, there are nurses, there are local government workers in every local government in Lagos State. So when you have Brenda's development happening, Eco Atlantic happening, and we are not impacting Gracefield Island happening, we are not impacting on the local community in any way, because government has taken all the revenue they can get in 5 years. They want to take it today from us. So even despite your provisions for CSR, in Federal Inland Revenue still wants you to pay your taxes anyway. So there must be that effort. But I can assure you, from what I know of independent developments, we are willing and ready. It's not necessarily a burden, but we must work together with government, and I think it can happen.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. You really touched a very strong point that it's happening possibly on paper, but they are being slow to catch up. So for example, we have this Jakonde estate very close to Maigo. And we went to the government to say, we've come to this Jakonde. It's almost always flooded. The houses are dilapidated. Most of the original owners have left the place because of the, really rundown state. And now what we have there are just hangers on, and all you can tell that by the way the Sycamore always gets attacked every time there's a small problem, because that is where they are hidden. I would say to the government, we have plans, we can raise finance to regenerate this place. And they said, oh, excellent, we like it. Show us your plans. And we show them we showed them our plans. And we said, however, what is your plan to relocate these people? So you need to tell us how to go about it. I mean, we don't want to relocate the people. We don't care about that. It is your job. You are the government. When you show us how you plan to relocate them and give us an empty land, then we will come in and do this. And they said, oh, okay, this looks like a good idea. We want to work on it. And it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years and they haven't said nothing. So, there are feelers that, they will wait for the election to pass first, or they want, they don't want to do things like that in terms of, we don't know. The truth of the matter is that the onus is on government to make the move. And there's a lot of private entities ready to take it up, because it's business now.
Right.
It's business.
Yes. I'm going to connect what you're doing along the Lekki axis, which generally one might call middle to upper middle class areas being created. And yesterday, I think Mr. Bayo Adeola gave a very good keynote speech and touched on some of the things that I thought I would, raise with you, both of you, where he talked about the housing stock and how we can, and how really it's so easy to build 100,000 expensive houses and you find the buyers. And the problem now becomes, what model can we invent to do the same thing, but for essential housing, How can we do it? We seem to have, you could say that we have mastered the art of doing a nice middle class, upper middle class environment. How are we going to do it for the much lower? What do you think could be a model for that? I know that that's not what your company set out to do. But if you think about it, if you're a developer, you can try a new market at some stage in your career. So what would you do if you got the opportunity to do something low cost? How would you go about it?
I think he had given us a very good suggestion where he said government needs to give us incentives to do it. We need to start with the incentives, because first of all, building in Lagos is expensive. The land is expensive, the construction is expensive, the government taxes, the government fees, all those are they are very expensive. So by the time you pile all your fees, and then the cost of finance is very expensive. By the time you put all your fees together, it doesn't add up, right? It doesn't add up to do the low cost housing. So we need incentives to be able to pursue that line and say to me, okay, I want you to, I'll give you a approval for this, your fancy estate too. But in addition to that, I need you to help me do this one at this and that and that. And we will do it. Because at the end of the day, as I'm doing my ego night, they are giving me the Jakonde at the same time. I can do it. I'm in the same axis. I'm right there. And even what we had proposed for them is not fancy like my ego, but just decent. So we can do it if only somebody sits down, does the maths, and makes it, win-win for us.
Yes, exactly same view. It's down to government. Land is a key component of property development. Government should be able to put in the land free. Because when you say low cost housing, there is no low cost cement. There's no low-cost reinforcement. Whether you want to build a palace or service quarters, is the same price. The input is the same price. What government can bring in two things, land, and like she said, give waivers on planning, approval fees, and all that. Those houses can then be developed at so-called low cost, and those savings can be passed on to the beneficiaries, public servants, people who are struggling on income.
Yes, it will obviously go into things like manufacturing as well. Like, what can we use? We have to build with new material. We cannot continue to build the way we're building if we want to do something of lower cost. I won't call it low cost because I think we've been told that it's a little politically incorrect to say low cost. But anyway, lower cost. We have to.
Sorry, can I come in there quickly? Yeah. When you said yes, but you see, you are now talking about research. Again, still down to encouragement of government, and what we can also do privately, work with Department of Estate Management, faculties of architecture in universities and institutions, where we can encourage research for new building materials. Maybe that's another way.
My thesis was on a new building material.
Right.
I actually designed houses, low-cost houses with building polymers. That was my master's thesis. So I remember going to one factory somewhere in, I can't remember where it is now. Somewhere it was in Lagos. I even their sites in Abuja, where they had built houses with this material. So, I mean, things like that are possible in school. That's when I was thinking like that.
Yes.
About money.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's funny you talked about you actually mentioned the universities, and yes, I've had a discussion with people where the universities could research, they could do more of the research into material, and it's work for them, and it gives them prestige because they're universities that pride themselves as centers of research, and there are some, maybe they're good in other things, and our universities need to be doing things. They're not doing enough. It's not just about teaching students, it's about research, and they could help change, the way things are going. So I think that what is going to happen now is that we need a more thinking government that will work with a thinking private sector to tackle issues of material, of land costs, and then like Brenda mentioned, you're right next to an estate. I could work on that estate while I'm working on mine, and you don't want to engage with me. I mean, you know what I mean? Those are things, it happens abroad a lot, where you're told to do a development, but you must apportion a certain part of it to be a lower cost. And in fact, there's been some very absurd projects where you go to an area, which I thought was a bit funny, but it's like maybe in the middle of Ikoyi, maybe you go to Thompson Avenue or something, and then you take a large plot of land and say you must do some very low cost on part of it and all that. And that's a bit funny because it's not going to work really, because that environment, the immediate thing people will say is, hang on, I worked hard and made 500 million naira to live on Thompson Avenue. Now look what you're doing. So it happened in Kensington in London, where a developer was forced to give some low-cost flats where you have the Commonwealth Institute, and they were built exactly the same outside, but the internal fitting of the low cost was low. And what's going to happen, everybody knows, is that eventually they're going to be sold off and people will move in and do them up and they're back. So some people have just been enriched, basically. So we need to now look at, how to do the low cost version of what you guys are doing as a way for Lagos to mend, but I'm happy that you've given the government, some good exposure here, because a lot of people actually believe that government is just rubbish, basically, as if no one there is doing anything, which is not true. It's not true. Well, I think we have explored this subject enough today. Maybe we should now thank the sorry? Yeah, sorry? Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe we should, okay, yeah, before we thank them, actually, yes. Are there any questions? There's a microphone with Aduke. Yes. Or isn't it? There were 4. You want to take it? No, there was one. One of them. There's one there. She left it somewhere there. It's up here. It's up here. You can take it. Because I didn't want because you might be answering a question.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for a very insightful discussion. I'm not an architect, not an urban planner. I just wonder, at what stage will we stop expanding into the lagoon? Do you think government will eventually say, look, we've done this and no more? Would there be a time when we can walk across the lagoon? And then if that happens, water always finds a way to come back. So it might not happen now, 50 years, 100 years. I mean, so my question is, at what point must reclamation stop? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, microphone is next to me, so I'll ask the next question. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much. It was such an interesting topic anyway, and I think everyone has brought some really great light into what you're doing, but also the future of Lagos and why this is also an important topic to talk about. So my question is about the investments that are being made. So, I think both projects are hard, like there's a lot of investment, a lot of finances going into this. And not just even financially in terms of money, but even like the thoughts about it, bringing in foreign people coming in to kind of share their knowledge and, even the design and all of that. So, it's not just financial investment, but also like social and environmental and so on. And when I look at some of the projects, I haven't particularly looked at either of these projects, so please, I'm not talking about your work per se. But when I look at some of the reclamation projects, and I see, you know, for example, I think, sir, you mentioned the height of the reclamation, or maybe it was, sorry, yeah, mentioned the height of the reclamation. And I've looked at some of the projects, and it says like 50 year. It's a 50 year. They've chosen 50 years, and that's how they've chosen the height of where the reclamation should be. And so my thinking is, okay, you're investing in this project, and it might only be there for 50 years. Like, why invest so much money for only 50 years or 75 years or 150 years, whatever it is, you know, depending on the height you've decided to go as high as. So my question is, why? Like, why put all this money into this project? And of course, it may last thousands of years. Who knows? The water might not encroach onto the land, or, you know, the materials you're using will actually last longer than estimated. But by science, it should last maybe 50 years, right? Or 70 or 100, whichever heights you've chosen and the materials you've chosen. So that's my question. Yeah. Wow, this investment for only 50 years or 75 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we answer now, or we take all of them? Okay. Okay, so about the investment and why, I would say that for us, our marine engineers have given our development 100 years warranty, and that is the warranty. It's not to say that it will not last longer than 100 years. However, even after the 100 years, they've given us plans of what to do to replenish the beach. How often we need to replenish the beach, how often we need to put in more sand and do this and do that. So, you know, they're very detailed about what was meant to be done. And if we follow through, we should be fine. You know, Nigerians are not very great at maintenance, but we intend to keep the facility maintenance of our estate so that we can at least, you know, because we have vested interest in there. We have our own houses in there. So we intend to keep the facility maintenance, and hopefully we'll get through. The first question, I think you can answer, sir.
Yes. So Aduke's question about filling up the lagoon. Like I said, you get this sort of question where the instinct is, if it's reclamation, is bad for the environment. And I think Brenda's answered, they had a CFO that covered a certain portion of land, and by the time they go to site, Atlantic Ocean had taken part of it away. So what they are doing is actually reclaiming the land, not reclamation in the sense of technology now, but claiming the land that used to be there. So you are actually helping nature. But specifically to Adike's question, Nigeria's coastline is about 850 kilometers, almost 1,000. That's the coastline itself. The water body itself, linking from lagoon into the Atlantic Ocean, eventually into Pacific, is thousands of kilometers wide. Yeah. So now the lagoon itself is shallow in many places. So today people say, oh, Lagos State is surrounded by water, all the traffic is on the road, not on water. The reality of Lagos is that we do not have waterways. Waterways are like roads that must be constructed. It's just like you look at a country in the desert and say, oh, they have so much land. Why don't they have roads? Somehow you just know that desert does not mean road. You must create road on the desert. The same thing with the water body. You must actually construct waterways. It doesn't happen naturally, particularly in lagoon that is very shallow. So if you are going to dredge to create waterways, where will you put the sand? You need to put the sand somewhere. It's cheaper, more cost effective to put it somewhere within the lagoon itself. You won't have been damaging the environment if you do it properly, because it's the same material within the same environment. So to reassure you, Aduke, Lekki is not going to join with Ikorodu. You are not just going to hop across the pond. It will still be there for many years. And like I said, the current reclamation projects you see in Lagos that we know of, all of them are within the master plan. They are not just happening willy-nilly, no. They are happening according to plan that's informed by science, and plan that is informed by environmental considerations. So it's because people are not aware of this plan, they just, oh, that's happening and that's happening. One day they'll just fill up the lagoon. I'm not sure that will happen.
Yeah. My question is more like, I'm curious about, as regards when they said the universities and institutions should come up with research, and we're research institutions. I'm a student, I'm currently a student, so I was actually curious there, and I thought about it. I was like, okay, if we had to come up with research, we have very few professors or researchers on campus, but we have a lot of students who can actually come on research because we are students. That's what we do anyway. We get assignments. So I was actually wondering if the developers could probably come on campus and tell us, okay, there's a price for coming up with an idea for low-cost housing. For Architect Brenda said when she was in school, she worked on polymer and sorts. If they could tell us, okay, do this as an assignment, there's a price for it, we would gladly go and do the research. And I think that can be beneficial. Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to bring in that angle.
Yes, it's it's an interesting question, or let's say proposition. The research, it would be good. Yeah, it would be good to involve students, obviously. And then, but eventually the what would I call it? Yes, of such research will still come from the teachers. You know what I mean? And yes, we all know that the universities are in trouble, now. So we're not talking as if they are built already to deal with what we're talking about, but we need to say something to be able to go out there and make it happen. What will it take to make the universities be able to do that? And then the students who will be in school, not out of school, in school and happy, will then be able to work for and with their tutors.
Chidi, can I intervene? I think the proposal from the young man, Olufemi, for me, I think it's very interesting. I actually felt like applauding him. That's a very good proposition. It's a challenge to us. It's a challenge to us that set up a competition, give us a prize. And talent has no definition, has no limit. So even it might be when they're out of school, it might be when lecturers are on strike that an idea will hit them. So we shouldn't actually box them into a certain framework and then say that the result must come through their teachers. That's where I want to intervene. He's here, he said he's a student. So that means that he's looking for something that is possibly outside classroom, or maybe he has something that the value of which will be much more appreciated outside the classroom. And we have to encourage that. And I think we should do more, we should do that, we should start doing that. So I applaud you for that.
Yeah, there are actually a number of design competitions, I'm sure that even as an architect, you would see a number of that. Many organizations have design competitions that they throw to the universities. I remember I was called to be on the jury of one of them the other day. They wanted I can't remember the details, but it was something really out of the box. It was a small apartment that was supposed to be everything inclusive. So they even had to design it to power itself and all of that. I can't remember the details now, but it was sometime during the lockdown that they did that competition, and there was money involved and all of that. So yes, we just need to do more of those, but there are people doing that already.
So the last question would be Stephanie. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you to all the panelists. I'm very curious to know how projects like a new city or a new large-scale development starts. What ideas lead to it? And then how did you go about achieving it? Gracefield Island is part of the Lekki Master Plan. How did it get there? And what was the process? I would love to hear more about that. And the same for Mayegun. How did it suddenly, appear? Yeah, is it one person that suddenly woke up from a dream and decided that's what they want to do? Or
most likely, most likely. For Mayegun, I know that the land was offered to us, literally, to say, oh, we have this piece of land, what can you do with it? And so with many ideas, we thought about, okay, so what is allowed on this axis, first of all? You know, they said, oh, it's tourism. I was like, okay, tourism. So we have to make it fancy to be able to fall into tourism. So we said, okay, we're doing a beachside estate. We had to throw some ideas back and forth. And then, you know, throughout get to the architects, get design ideas from the architects, the planners. Then we had to get into the engineering of it. We had to get the contractor. We had to get finance. You know, it's a whole ball game. We've been on Maegun since 2017. And we hope to finish our infrastructure December this year. So that's like 5 years, just infrastructure. The houses are not there yet. You know, so it's a really large, I mean, it takes time and a lot of faith.
Your last
You
word?
can say that again. Yeah, thank you for that question. In our own case, when we wanted to do this project, is what we've seen elsewhere in the world. And specifically, the vision was informed by two developments, Century City in Cape Town and Canary Wharf in London, where we've seen reasonably sized parcel of land developed into almost a city within their environment. Canary Wharf is only 35 hectares, but when you get there, you don't feel like it's 35 hectares. You feel like it's 150, 200 hectares. And Century City, same. Century City is about 160 hectares, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's an old town all by itself. So when we, in our own case, we approach Lagos State government, we can recreate this in Lagos. And then at that time, they've not even enacted the Lekki Master Plan. So they said, wait a minute, that was 2007. The Lekki Master Plan wasn't enacted until 2008. Again, to underline the deliberateness of government itself in creating a master plan. So when they did it, they allocated us a space on one of the many new island communities they've imagined, which was at the end of Chevron Drive. It was going to impose huge obligation on us because we were not going to be connected to any public infrastructure whatsoever. So it's like you get to Chevron, the shoreline, then you swim or jump or fly. So we had to come up with our own land bridge, which we've done at 2.3 kilometers, you know, and we knew that it's just got to be a new community. And the whole idea is that there is hardly any upscale development you have in Nigeria, in Lagos specifically, that you don't have is an adjoining slum. And we thought we can't continue to live like this. Come to Banana Island, come to the road leading up to Banana Island as at today. I'm not talking about last year. And it's open drainage on both sides. When they take out the rubbish, they pack them on the roadside, come there in the morning, particularly weekdays. You see street traders everywhere. That's the reality. So you have this person living on Banana Island that cannot even cycle outside that environment, that cannot take a walk outside that environment. We thought that we are better than that. We can create something that we've seen. If we are tying the vision of Great Strait Island to say Canary Wharf, oh, that's London, that's Europe. At least now there is Century City in South Africa. That's Africa. So hopefully, so that's part of the inspiration. And we believe we can actually use it to generate a new community of people who live normally. So the people, the sort of things you see in real estate, where people say luxury development. What is luxury? Is it the gold tap? It has nothing to a lifestyle. The real lifestyle is you should be able to walk around your environment. You should have basic services around you. You should be able to go to a restaurant. If you have school-age children, they should be able to go to school nearby. Those are the things you need. If you live near water, you should have access to jetty. How many properties in Ikoyi have access to any jetty? How many people even have boats? Those are the things that have informed what we are doing on Great Strait Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think with that, we've come to the end of this session. We have another one following now. So thank you, panelists. And no one drank any water. Okay. It's called sustainability. So the next people can, is it off? Right.
Thank you, everybody. And can I have a round of applause for our wonderful panel. I think we've learned a lot about new islands, new spaces, environmental issues, sustainability issues, public transport issues, social housing. So please take a step forward so they can take your photograph. And thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute comfort break, and then we move quickly into the second panel. Thank you very much. So for those of you who were here at the beginning when I mangled Brenda's name, I have practiced, and so I'd like to do a proper closing. Thank you to Chuka Ihonor. Thank you to Femi don't disgrace me, Babalola, and Brenda Unuavworho.
Yes, taking time to practice my own.
Yeah, so that's my own. It's very easy. No worries.